Good evenings. Good evenings, my Coffee and Collaborations family. If you don't know me already, I am Al the Great, and thank you for joining me for this special edition of a special edition. Kind of like I guess we can call it a watch party, but we're gonna watch, part one of the culture versus marriage, and thank you for joining us. And let's roll the intro. Hey, like I said before, my name is Al the Great, and this is Coffee and Collaborations. This is a special edition of Coffee and Collaborations. So we thought it would be a great idea to get you all ready for tomorrow. And if you don't know what tomorrow is, I need you to wake up and I need you to make sure that you are following Coffee and Collaborations. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, everywhere. I need you to make sure that you follow in Coffee and Collaborations because we are doing part two of the culture versus marriage. Part one was husband speak. Part two is wives speak. And I really, I don't know how many reallys I can use, but really enjoyed this conversation with the fellas. Some amazing fellas. They shared so much insight about marriage and about the husband's perspective and some of the things that husbands go through, and definitely how the culture seems like often that it is against marriage. So, I really enjoyed myself. It was really we wanted to be like barbershop talk, and it was really like barbershop talk. It was raw. They really didn't hold anything back, and I really appreciate that. Good evening, Miss Kimberly Winborn. So really enjoyed it. It really was amazing, and I'm glad that you guys came to join us for this one. So, like I said before, this is we thought it would be fun, kind of to do almost like a watch party, and we're gonna watch together. And I might stop it a couple times just to because they made so many good points, and I feel like maybe a couple times I need to stop it. And we're gonna be chatting in the comments. Let me know how you feel about all this. What hits home for you? And if you are watching this and you're seeing me, make sure that you share. Especially share it with a husband, especially share it with a marriage couple, and get everybody ready for tomorrow because it is really going down with the wives, the culture versus marriage, wives speak, and I think the ladies are gonna bring it even harder than the guys. Don't tell the guys. Don't tell them. But we're gonna see. I think they're gonna bring it even harder. So I am looking forward to it, and I am also just honored to be part of that conversation, to host the conversation. So make sure you join me, and let's check out the guys. Let me know what you feel about it.
Glad to be in the building.
All right, bear with me for a minute. Say you can't hear. So you guys bear with me, trying to get this audio right.
Excuse me for being out of order. Other people said names, so I want to say my wife's name is Jania Mitnall Williams.
Bear with me, bear with me. Can you all hear it when I'm in it? When my screen shows up? Let me know.
That's all right.
Yeah, so my name is Brentley Wright. I'm married to Beverly Wright. We've been married for 9 years. I run a company called Blink Financial, also a consultant and racial equity economic advisor with Accelerated Men. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. Awesome. So we have an exciting panel, you all. Al,
Maybe you've given that advice before. Well, but what's that best advice you can give to a husband?
Nobody say that the woman's always right. Don't do it.
That's foolishness.
Let's start with Brentley since we ended with him on introduction.
Okay, cool. So yeah, the advice that I think men need to have going into marriage is probably pulled out of Matthew chapter 19 verses 11 through 12, where he deals with. I'll read it. Matter of fact, let me read it. It says, Jesus said, "Not everyone is mature enough to live a married life. It requires a certain aptitude and grace. Marriage isn't for everyone. Some births seemingly never give marriage a thought. Others never get asked or accepted, and some decide not to get married for 10 reasons. But if you're capable of growing into the largeness of marriage, do it." So my wisdom would probably be from God's book, man. To just say, are you ready? You need to be ready for it, because there's a grace that comes with that, a responsibility that comes with that, and marriage is not for little boys; it's for grown men, and we need to make it happen.
Ooh. You go from playing with real toys. You go from playing with toys to real knives and scissors and everything.
Yeah.
Real man. And that's a whole other conversation, Brentley. Marriage is made for real men, not boys. Y'all know we can deep dive into that one right there, but we're gonna continue on.
That's why I threw it out. I threw the alley-oop.
I caught it. Look at Kelly. Go husband, Kelly. Kelly, I'm gonna say it like I think people say it. Go husband. Hey, Kenya is the co-host of Love and Flow TV, one of our other shows on Coffee and Collaboration Media. Shout out to Kenya Thompson. She said, "Hey fellas." All right, who else? Who wants to go up next? Elton, you want to tackle that?
Yeah. I think marriage is not for somebody that's selfish. Marriage is not for somebody that's not considerate. Because in marriage, you're gonna have some things that you do or you get mad at the person about, but you gotta step back and go out and say, what was their intent? They really mean to make me mad, or they really mean to do this and do that. So you have to be led, and this is just my personal experience, and my personal belief is that a husband has to be a man of God. He has to be led by another man of God, or have some other higher man speaking to their life is going to tell them when they're right and when they're wrong.
Love it. Intention. That was a big one. What is the intent? I think that's a tough one a lot of times to hold on to, especially when you got emotions involved. So y'all are all things that my mind is always going. So let me just okay, next.
I'm trying to catch the oop from my brothers. I'm trying to catch it. But one of the powerful movies that I've just been looking at is Creed 2. I know my brothers have seen that.
Yeah.
At one piece inside of Creed 2, Rocky comes to him after he's been defeated, and he says, "You got to be willing to change your status. You got to be willing to go in different ways." And I believe that as a man in marriage, you got to be willing to change. And that's the hardest part right there. Some men don't want to get married because they feel like it's going to change. You got to be willing to change. You got to be willing to change, but also keep it spontaneous in your marriage. How about those two?
Yes, that's the thing with the game. You got to change. You got to.
Change and keep it fresh. Keep it spontaneous. All right, Brandon.
All right, so this is gonna sound awful when I say it initially, but let me fill in the gaps. So something that I say often is being not selfish, but appropriately selfish. So the book talks about seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, all things be added unto you. So once my theology says, once I am solidified in the club, then the kingdom is a guarantee. So what's it talking about? The kingdom here right now and the calling that we're supposed to be working towards on earth. And when we focus on that and let everything else fall in place the way it should, my theology says, so I am. One of the convenient things that I witness that we as dudes do a lot is we look for the immediate gratification of peace. And that's when we get into that place of happy wife, happy life. But it should be happy spouse, happy house, because both people got to be happy in order for the thing to work the way that it should. And sometimes that means that instead of sweeping it under the rug and not engaging in appropriate confrontation where we figure out how to work through problems, not just going with what makes other people happy, what makes your kids happy in that moment, what makes your wife happy in that moment, or you happy in that moment. but have the overarching goal of being the person that you're supposed to be. And that will make you a better husband, a better father, a better person on your job, or whatever it is that you're doing. But we got to maintain that appropriate focus on the goal, which is what we've been born and called to do. We take up space for a reason.
I love it. Look, I'm gonna catch that. I'm gonna catch that alley-oop, that assist. One of the things I would say, I tell a lot of men, and what I had to learn the hard way. If you guys read my testimony about when I met my wife, I saw that beautiful smile. My wife has a lot of teeth, and every so often when she does that, the biggest smile, you see all those teeth, and it lit up my whole world. You know, I wanted to see them teeth always. I wanted to be the one to make that smile happen. But one of the things I've learned is everybody's in charge of their own happiness. I am not in charge of my wife's happiness. She's not in charge of my happiness. Husband, like the Bible says, I do everything that I'm supposed to do. But whether she smiles as a result of it or not, that is not on me.
True.
I love some of these comments coming in. Everything you gentlemen are saying is on point, and they're loving it. Mentorship community is important. Happy spouse, happy house. Last one, that's good. Healthy conflict resolution is great for intimacy too, with the crazy emojis.
Yeah, can I push back on that for a bit?
Yeah.
I don't believe in intimacy fixing problems. You gotta have conversation. All intimacy is a band-aid to say, okay, I give in, I'll let you get away with it this time. But I got this thing where me and my wife, I don't care what it is, and this is the hardest thing sometimes, we are never going to bed mad at each other. Ever. If I gotta be wrong, if we gotta say, okay, let's shelf this and we'll talk about it later, we're never going to be mad at each other. I think sometimes we sweep things under the rug, but it can be a crutch for other things that down the line that can snowball. Because if you keep putting this away and putting this away and putting this away and putting this away, sooner or later that thing gonna snowball, and it's gonna snowball and be a powder keg from something small, and it's gonna blow up. And then it's gonna be like, well, I knew you was like that anyway. I've seen it a million times, but I think sometimes we need to go and have, like Dave was saying, sometimes you got the confrontation ain't always a bad thing.
Yeah.
Be mature about it. You say happy house, happy spouse, happy house. I say happy mature adults. Because just because you making a wife happy don't mean that she ain't toxic. It don't mean that she learning things from the way she was raised that she ain't toxic. And you may just be putting a band-aid on that, trying to make her happy.
Let me jump in there too with what Ms. Lawson put in there about healthy conflict. I hope I didn't cut anybody off. That wasn't my intention. So the way I read it is the healthy conflict resolution is great for intimacy too. You know that friend that tells you your shirt don't match your pants or your wrinkles don't go out there? That's the one you trust when you go to for your opinion. Like, you know, the one that's always telling me is, hey, you sing in church, they're gonna always tell you did a good job, whether you off key or not. But the person who tells you, hey, that wasn't good, you need to clean that up, it promotes a certain level of trust. So when you have that healthy conflict on a regular basis, then you begin to trust each other. And when you trust each other and you move towards intimacy, which includes vulnerability, it does take it to a whole nother level. I think that's the direction she was going in. Ms. Lawson, feel free to correct me if I'm off, but I wanted to put that out there too.
Yeah,
healthy conflict resolution means you dealt with the situation.
And we should also in our marriage think of intimacy as having conversations.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Definitely, I know this is about the men, but I feel like definitely with women that is a part of the conversation. That's the thought that a man needs to have. You know, that's how you set it up for that makeup sex. You know, you gotta have that conversation. You gotta have that close intimacy. You gotta, be able to talk about some things.
Absolutely. I put up her correct again because that was my opinion on that. All right, so good stuff. Thank you for adding to that, BD. So next question. So we moving right along, Al?
Yes, let's go with that first one. You want to do it or you want me to do it?
You good? You go ahead.
All right, so going to this first question. So in our culture, there's sexual freedom. There's sex outside of marriage. Sex outside of marriage is common. There's gender fluency, ideas that men are not meant for monogamy. People can live together for a long time. They can buy property together. They can do all these things. They can have kids together. So why get married in the first place?
All right. So how about Reverend Threat? Why get married in the first place?
That's a good question. Good question. And people that get married and stay married and then end up getting divorced, they say, "See, I shouldn't have got married anyway." And in fact, right before I got married, I consulted with some brothers and had some barbershop talk, and they said, "No, don't do it. Don't do it." But I believe everyone should at least be able to get married at one point. I think staying with somebody, there's a commitment that has to take place. A commitment has to take place. And the greatest commitment that you can make is doing this covenant with somebody. It's like a tent. And that's how I like looking at a triangle, a tent, however you want to say it. And inside the marriage, there's a physical fellowship that takes place where love is felt protected, sheltered, and free, and being able to be just who they are. And some people might argue and say, well, I can do all that just from not getting married. Yes, you can, but then there's also, I always wonder, okay, what if this person leaves me? What if this happens, that happens? So I believe everyone should at least attempt to try to get married in some type of way, but then you have the argument of marrying the right one. That's very important, being equally yoked. And so there's a challenge in that, making sure you find the right one and the right time that you will be married. So I believe that is a very important thing. You have the right one that you're married to, and if you are living with somebody for so many years, why not go ahead and get married to them? Why not make that big commitment to them? And I'd love to hear the comments with that.
I like you said, why not? Why not get that experience?
That's like
that marriage has been warped.
Cordell, yeah, we read the same. Just like love, marriage has been warped, and in a lot of ways, it's gotten a bad rap. Did anybody else want to follow up with that? Britley, Elton, or BT?
Yeah,
Why
I
get
would
married?
say that you want to get married because it's going to show forth your commitment to that individual, your spouse. It's nothing like a commitment. Your parents were committed to raising you, no matter the story. You're committed to going to work every day. You're committed to spending money with the places and institutions that you love, whether it's apparel or the food or etc. But when it comes to a relationship with a person that you really do love, there needs to be a commitment to where it's hard for you to break ties. One of the things my wife and I have as a theme in our marriage from the beginning was we're going to be unbreakable. Unbreakable. But the only way to be that was to, one, get married and then put serious commitment, covenant behind what we were doing, so we could take our union, before the Lord. And marriage represents the beauty of the gospel that Jesus Christ died for his bride, the church, and he's committed to us. So our marriage should reflect that. And, the bottom underpinning of that is commitment. So, and it also, on the second note, I'll say is that because there have been bad reps and bad models of marriage, if you feel that God blessed you with this beautiful spouse, commit, make it turn, renew that model, change that model for your family and do something different that God can do and breathe in, your marriage. But it just takes commitment. I think the biggest thing what we're seeing today is that, a lot of people just don't want to commit to the hard reality that you have to be bonded together in a covenant. And it's just not like any other relationship. It's an extraordinary relationship when you commit to it.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
Go ahead, Elton.
I would say marriage is needed. I think a man and a woman are handicapped if they don't have that extra person beside them. Because if you have the right person, if you have the correct person, everything in your life is going to change by that person coming in your life. I tell a man or a brother that's apprehensive, because I was right there. I was like, how you get married with somebody and y'all sit on the couch every single night beside each other for the rest of your life? Right? But now, when I got married, now that's all I want to do. You know, just to take that time, and like we said a while ago, that intimacy of just having a conversation. Just how was your day? How many, you know, how you going? A wife makes you so much better, man, because of the way they think and the way they see things and the way they can tell you a simple way to do something instead of you stressing it out and trying to work it out in your head. Because you know we don't talk. We just try to figure it out in our head. But on that other end, we give so much more to them that they don't have by themselves. They can be independent all they want to. But to have that piece of security and companionship with a man, that does wonders for women. And they'll tell you if they find the right one, they'll tell you that too. And as far with kids, you need a mother and a father. We're talking about culture versus marriage. You need that. You need that balance, because you can have a woman that says, well, I'm the mama and the dad. No, ma'am, no, you're not. You can have a dad that says, I'm the mama and the daddy. No, you're not. Because that woman is going to give that kid so much nourishment that you can't begin to give that kid. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of love the woman shows. And the man's going to show that child love by correction and direction. And it ain't happy and nice, but they need that both in this culture, what we call society, I think.
Yeah. I think amazing points, you know, for everybody. One of the things that stick out to me is we read the Bible that God hates sin. So you can be having sex before marriage, and you can do all these things before marriage. But if your sex life is not good, you can't pray about it. If I'm married, I can pray about my sex life. I can take everything to God. If the bed is undefiled, I can take my whole relationship to God and put it on the altar. You know, you can't speak to God over here. Like, it's gonna be returned to sin. You gonna hang up the phone.
That was deep, Al. That was deep right there. That really was a good point. One of the things that Elton kind of dove into is part of our next question. In our culture, we're conditioned to believe the value of a man is how many women want him, or how many he slept with, how much money he makes. A lot of times, women feel like we can do it alone because we got jobs, you know, all these different things we're making in. What do you think is the true value of a man? Elton, you kind of touched on some things. Brandon, would you like to add to that? What do you think is the true value of a man?
I hope I don't get in trouble, but I want to say something about the last question too.
Okay.
and just for clarity, was it why should we get married? Why should people get married? Was that the question?
Yeah.
And I know I'm gonna do it quickly. So I gotta say, I think it's contingent upon the situation. So if somebody's already locked into someone and they're spending this intimate time. I had a girlfriend one time, no shade against her. We stayed in the same house. I paid for everything except for the internet. And I realized we needed to have the foundational intimacy intact through something like that for me to be willing to give that sacrifice consistently. So that's one of the reasons why if we're close, we need to be. But Paul talks about, I wish that you would be like me and not married at all, so you can be focused on your personal mission. So depending on what it is that you're doing and your calling, I think it shifts whether or not we should get married or shouldn't. Then he follows up and says, if it's better for you to be married so you don't burn, in other words, you don't set up a situation where you tear yourself down, you can go ahead and do that. So there's some folks out there who aren't interested in being married. Some dudes who may not have gotten to the mature level where they can take on a marriage, and women too, because when you get into marriage, there's the love your wife as Jesus loved the church, but also obey and respect your husband. That's a two-part thing. That covenant has to be both people. But anyway, back to the next question. I'm sorry, I just really felt that one, so I wanted to put that out. What was the next question?
No, it's okay. What is the true value of a man?
The true value of a man. So My goodness. So if we're talking about in the context of a relationship, and again, my theology is coming out all over this. If you're in a non-traditional relationship, that's a different conversation. But the way it's set up for me is the man is the head of the household, but before you jump on me, that's a role, not a position that puts you above anybody else. There's the guy covers everything, man covers the family, wife covers the children, and the children just fall in line. And that responsibility as far as who is prioritized changes depending on what season you're in. So if I'm elderly, my kid said to me one day he wants to be a doctor so he can take care of mom and daddy when they get older. I really appreciate that. At that time, their needs will be prioritized. But anyway, back to what's the value of a man. We're created to be the domineering pieces on the planet. Not talking about mankind when I say that, but there are things that we do naturally and are built for that we need to be in place for. Somebody said already that and I'm paraphrasing, traditionally it should be a two-parent household in the family, so all the needs will be taken care of. I have an issue with stereotyping people, but in my work as a therapist and doing couples counseling, I've seen things play out. It could be nature or nurture where the culture created a way that people move. But usually when a spider shows up, my wife calls me and tells me to come kill it. Usually when it's time to cook and take care of the house, she's doing that. Not because that's what she's supposed to do, but that's naturally where she falls. Now, when we start talking about communication, I'm the empathetic, active listener one, and she's the one, hey, just fix my problem and leave me alone. So we have a role reversal there. But in the places where we show up and we are charged with the role, we have to have the responsibility to, lead that. I think that we're on the front line most of the time, so that means we make decisions, but it also means you get shot first. You got to be willing for that sacrifice.
You get shot first.
And you should.
And big. I definitely take a point you said, man, because even with that headship, we're created equal in the marriage, equal but different roles. And so I love how you kind of broke down the role, man. That's powerful. One of the things we do also as husbands, when you do get married, thinking about getting married out there, your job is to not only provide and protect, but also, man, you got to be the spiritual temperature and the climate of the family. Washing your wife with the water of the word. I mean, I was listening to a sermon the other day. My man said a lot of us have, you got a good sex game, but you ain't got no scripture game, right? You can't lay your hands on your wife when she's really sick, or your children. You empty. And so part of that role is to say, hey, I'm here as God has entrusted me with you and these kids to be the spiritual protector and the provider in that sense, and the orchestrator and teacher, of it as well. And so, yeah, big. What you were saying is great. Also, Deuteronomy 6, God is calling the husband to teach the children in Deuteronomy 6, and so that's powerful. So now husbands take on a teaching role to the children. One of the things when I asked my wife, her parents, for in the marriage, they asked me, her dad, what do you have to offer? What do you have to offer? And at the time, my wife had, she was a very independent woman, had more than I did. And, and I said, leadership. Because I got leadership, right? And I think that's one of the things that God entrusts and endows in a man to bring in a marriage. It's that strong leadership that understands that we're equal together, but different in role, and that God has put us together. But I got some specific things that I gotta do for you to get you ready for a return. So yeah, that's a powerful thing, man. I love what you said there, Biggs.
Yeah, and if I can add, man, I believe every man should marry God first. This goes with that marriage is not just in one sense. It should be, you should marry God first. And then after you marry God, then you're able to understand a little bit about marriage even more, right? Because we can't figure this out. I read something where an athlete would train his whole life and then perform, let's just say at the Olympics, right? And so they know what to do in there. When it comes to marriage, how do you train for that? You train in the Word of God. That's the only thing. You marry God first. So when you marry God, then you can understand a little bit about marriage. You think about over in Genesis, Adam was married to God first, right? And then God brought Eve to Adam. So that the marriage has to take place in there. And when we think about Jesus, that must be about my Father's business. So when you talk about the value of a man, you have to be about the Father's business. It can't just be about your needs, your satisfaction, your desires, your ego. It got to be more than that, right? It got to be about the Father's business.
Yeah. That's a great point, man. I was on this other Zoom probably about a couple weeks ago, and the guy asked me, he said, I see you and your wife, y'all seem like y'all got a good relationship, you know, y'all do a lot of things together. And he said, how do y'all stay together? And I said, now, if I tell you this, the whole show gonna change. The whole atmosphere of the show gonna change if I tell you this. Because the answers you won't be ready for it. And so he said, no, go ahead and give it to me. We speak real talk. I said, okay. I said, how me and my wife stay together? You got to have the Holy Spirit involved. You have to have the Holy Spirit involved, because the Holy Spirit is the only thing that's going to tell you to shut up, consider her way, consider his way. You was raised this way and she was raised this way. Step back fussing and come back to it later on. Because if you listen to you and yourself, our self, we're going to always want to be right. We act like we don't. We come up with all the reasons and excuses, but you're going to want to be right. But if you don't have the Holy Spirit in your life that speaks to you, somebody, if you don't have an intercessor, if you don't have somebody in there to break that thing up when it needs to be broken up, because that's the only thing that speaks to our mind. That's the only thing that makes people stop smoking, stop drinking, stop abusing drugs. That's the only thing is Christ and the Holy Spirit. So who behooves us to think that we don't need that for something else that's more abusive, that can be more abusive than that. When you're talking about two cultures of people coming together, how she was raised, how I was raised, and you coming together. So you got to have the Holy Spirit in there to be that fixer, to be that wrench, and to be that thing to say, okay, step back a little bit. You need to think about this, because you're about to fight a battle that you don't need to fight. And it's way more than it's worth.
Yeah, as men, sometimes that ego gets you in trouble.
Boy.
Oh yeah.
The ego in that heart, boy, it's fragile. Both of them super fragile.
Yeah. Look, that's a whole other conversation on its own, because I know, like, talking to you women, I know some of y'all want to hear this, but I know sometimes y'all look at men and y'all think men are super hard, super hard, like super confident and all these things. A man is very fragile. That ego is very, very fragile. And I say this all the time. I joke about this all the time. If you just use that honey instead of that lemon, give him a little honey. That man will do anything for you. He'll go fight a bear butt naked for you with a butter knife. He'll do anything for you. Just give him that honey.
Jay.
There it is. See how they don't believe it. They don't
know. I got a visual of that.
Yeah, okay. But you know what? To push what he's saying, it's a difference in a woman and her husband in the car riding. He's going 65 and 45, and she's saying, "You slow down. You talk so dumb." And then as opposed to her saying, "Baby, I love you so much. Just slow down a bit so we can spend more time together in life."
Yeah. You got a whole legacy in this car.
Man, you about to end your whole legacy. The best thing happened to you.
More shit in this car.
You're right though, Al. You said it's about the way they talk to you, and to flip that around, it's about the way that we talk to them as well. There's a lot of conversation I have with my wife, and I always talk about the tone, your delivery, and then she flip it around and be like, no, your tone, your delivery. So then I have to catch myself. I began talking about change. You got to be willing to change. And I love how my brother Brendan said, you got to be a man. and willing to accept certain things. And to add what he said, every man ought to be not just a provider and protector, but also a prophet, a priest, and a preacher, right? You add all those three and the provider and protector inside there. You can't just let your pastor or preacher or somebody else proclaim certain things in your home over your wife, over your family. As a man, as a husband, you have to do that. You have to do that. Right?
There's that value of a man right there. There we go.
Yeah.
All right, so look at this next question. We still got a lot to go through, but I want y'all to make your point. But let's try to get through these two. What do you want to say, Brendan?
I was gonna say Proverbs, back on the feelings piece that you hit, man, Al, was it's really Proverbs 31:11, and it says her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value.
Oh, now.
So he has married someone who he fully trusts with his inner self, his emotion, that vulnerability, which I know that's probably hard for us men today, but he has full confidence in her because she's someone that he can bring and lay his hair down, so to speak, to her, and she is now representing her value. Most men don't have a woman that they can actually have full confidence in. So if you want to see some emotion, some vulnerability, how about you humble yourself under the mighty hand of God so that that man can come and lay in your lap and discuss and talk and bring his vulnerabilities out, and you probably end it with prayer. And he prayed, and he has full confidence.
Hey, I'm excited for that.
As a husband, I've also seen that even if that doesn't happen, you still got to do what Brent was saying. You still got to go do it anyway. You got to be the example. So looking at this next question. So men are conditioned to be hunters. You know, we in our culture, we look at women as conquests. We try to do whatever we can to figure them out, to get that date, or whether it be sex or whatever it is. We really study women. You know, I think from little boys, you're how you feel about yourself and how you just pleasing yourself is all about how many women you can get. So it's all about the game. So when you get married, how does a man counter that conditioning when they have decided to marry and focus on one woman? How do you counter that conditioning of being in the game? It's about the conquest. It's about the trophy. The guy then drove 2 hours to tell the woman good morning, and then drove 2 hours back. You know, how do you put that focus? How do you put that focus on one woman?
So I'm gonna jump in here. Analyzing and figuring out what is the driving force behind your behavior. So like usually what a person prioritizes and also defines their value by is what their environment taught them adds value to them. So if you get quote unquote notches on the headboard, then all of a sudden you're solidified. And I also want to submit that when we all grown here, for to have a climactic moment, you don't necessarily need another person. But when you get with another person and you have that physical intimacy, that's intimacy that a lot of times dudes are lacking. So I think the misnomer is I'm going in for a conquest. Really, I'm looking for my fulfillment by somebody accepting me holistically. So when you start realizing that, similar to dietitians will tell you, sometimes when you think you're hungry, you're actually thirsty. And you are looking for food because the body has recognized when you eat, you get some of that thirst quenched because there's moisture in the food. Once you realize that, I don't have to eat food the whole time. I just go get me a drink of water. So once I realize I'm looking for true intimacy through this physical conquest, then I realize I don't need to be hurting people and I don't need to be hurting myself for intimacy. I just need to join with somebody else and feel that closeness. So really figuring out what you're going after by knowing yourself clearly, I think that's the key. Like the culture says do it this way, but it's really a trick. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Get new information to really figure out what the truth is and prove that perfect and acceptable will of God to prove how you're really supposed to move. Grown men don't go chasing women. And when I say grown, I'm not talking about chronological, I'm talking about maturity.
Woo!
Oh, yeah.
One of the things that you see, one of the things, like you said, we all grown here. One of the things that you see said you don't need anybody else to have that climactic moment. I've had conversations with other men to have that climactic moment on by yourself. Let's say you got to get your needs met. Is that sinful?
Oh, you said
Say that again, Al.
Let me go back. If it's all right, I want to go back to what Dig said and talk a little bit about a climactic moment, because that moment for one individual or two can be very exciting, but I believe it's the process up to that climax moment that makes it more fulfilling, right? So if there's a process with you just by yourself, it's a whole lot better when you're with somebody. A whole lot better. Right? Yeah.
You breaking it down. I thought you was about to break out the song, man. You breaking down the Gary White.
But
Go ahead.
yeah, and I want to add one more thing. There's a good writer named Ernest Becker, and he talked about romance that we just try to find in a female or in that moment, and replace it because we replace God and we try to find that romance in sex and in love and in those moments right there. And so when you see culture and you talk about culture, culture tries to embrace that and not lift up faith and not lift up God, but lift up the sex and lift up the romance. And that's what we're seeing right now. So to your point, where you're going, is it sinful? I think the sin is where we replacing the sex and God, commitment to God, instead of the faith and our commitment to Him. I think that's the same piece right there. Yes, sir.
Okay. Anybody else want to take a shot at that? And I guess we got two questions on the table. You know, how do you refocus your mind to focus on that one woman? You know, when you've been out there in the culture, you've been out there in the game, and you had about 2-3 women, you had one for breakfast and one for lunch and one for dinner. You know, how you go to focus on one woman. And the other question I presented is masturbation sin?
Well, can I jump in real quick, because there is the assumption sort of on the table that all men have an appetite for multiple women. So I do know that not all men have an appetite for multiplicity. Some men do like, just, you know, kind of clear things up. I don't want anybody to assume that we think that everybody's out here hoeing or anything like that. But the culture does.
This is strictly focusing on like what does the culture push.
Right. Well, that's what I was about to say.
Multiple women or everybody having it.
The culture does suggest it, but I do want to say that there are. I just want to clear that up because people, we talk about the culture, but this is also you know, a show that we want to be clear that we're not passing judgment, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're not assuming across the board. And we want to highlight the good at some point. You know, not that everything is bad, but we do want to highlight the good in some people that are out there. So anyway, just wanted to add that, not focus on it. So then, who else wanted to add to that question?
Yeah, I would say for me, I look back, you know, like in my story, you know, I got a wild story, man, but, you know, I think about this question, you know, kind of ran a little bit for the show, man. I was like, and I felt like the good Lord just dropped this nugget in me. It was like, hey, man, apart from me, you can't be a good husband. Like, and apart from me, you can't stay faithful. You can't do nothing. So the big thing on the table is to actually know that, you know, we ain't work, you know, like my mentor would say, you ain't worth 2 cents. You know you ain't worth 2 cents. And so you need the goodness of the Lord to help you and His Spirit to guide you. Secondly, though, I would literally, if a man is married but hasn't placed himself, I think Elton talked about this earlier, hasn't placed himself around a strong community of brothers, he is doomed to almost fail, because he is keeping those insecurities, those vulnerabilities to himself, to fight by himself in a world. And go back to Matthew 19, what I just read. Not everybody is ready for the largest marriage. It takes a man to step forward and to say, I'm going to be a husband to one woman, love one woman, when the culture is saying get 2 or 3, when that's all you see. So to say I'm gonna be kingdom down versus culture up, that's the reality and the tension you're gonna have to live with as a man. So your remedy has got to be the renewing of the mind, but it's got to be God. You got to help me every single day. You got to help me make this decision. And then I got brothers I can call. Right now, my wife has been in her phone my elders that she can call. They say, hey, Brent Griffin, way out there. He think he's crazy. He talking crazy. Hey, you got to go and call that black Negro right now. Call him right now before he come home, so he can get his mind right, and we get those check-ins. And so I think that's what a man is going to need to stay committed and devoted to God. He's got to be governed by the Spirit. Secondly, is sin, masturbation a sin? You won't find masturbation in the Bible. What you will find, though, is that it talks about in the last days, men will become lovers of themselves. So to think of yourself and be that with yourself is actually to take on that form of idolatry within yourself. And so you want to just say, hey, listen, I'm not here for that. What I'm here for is to please God instead of please myself.
I want to, go ahead.
I think a while ago Al said we're hunters, right? And I don't think we can get that out of our DNA. We can't get hunters out of our DNA, but we can have brothers in our life to speak to us, like Brent was saying. I'm gonna tell you this, and this is straight game code, man code right here. A man is as faithful as his temptations. A man is as faithful as his temptations. And it's the maturity of that man that don't allow himself to let himself fall into those temptations. If you know you can't handle that place, don't go that place. It's just, I can say it simple as that, but it's just simple as that. If you got brothers in your life, you say, okay, brother, you don't need to go over there. I know, but you don't need to go over there. And a lot of us, it's the temptation that you allow yourself to be around, and we know, all men know. So it behooves you not to put yourself around it, or if you find yourself in that situation, move yourself out of that situation, because you're a man. If you have your heart, and if you have anything else other than that, then okay. But if you're a hunter, if you want to hunt something, you don't want to hunt, leave, so you can't see it. You go hunt, go appreciate the thing that you've already caught.
I want to stir the pot a little bit, similar to how Kimberly did it a little bit ago, pointing out that not all men are looking to be a hoe. Paraphrasing. When we talk about culture, our modern culture is not to pull a Nick Cannon, but our modern culture is the culture that says one woman. Even when we look at biblical times, Solomon, how many wives did he have? It was a whole different setup when we're having conversation about marriage. So culture kind of pushes us in the position where it's one-on-one. And when I say that, I'm not attacking the one-on-one. I'm just stirring it up so we can look at it at different angles. Now, the conversation about sin, it's been said a couple times. I think that's a whole show within itself. So we have the concrete sins that are laid out in the Old Testament, 600 plus of them, not just the 10 that get highlighted all the time. But at the same time, at the walls of Jericho, a prostitute was used to go in and lie to people so that the will of God could be fulfilled. If somebody comes in my house in the middle of the night and try to attack my family, thou shalt not kill, but they're going to catch these bullets this night if I can get my hand to the gun, because I'm protecting my family. So therefore, the context really sets up what's right and what's not. They tried to get Jesus by saying, hey, you don't heal this person on the Sabbath, because they wanted to use a technicality against him to categorize his action as sin. So sometimes when we start talking about what's sin and what's not sin, we have to be a little bit careful, because we have a man-made hierarchy when it comes to that. So I think it's better to say something like what is good for you and what is not good for you, because usually the tutor, which is the law from the old covenant, is to help us understand what's good for us, what's not. And then when we get mature, we may not need that same type of concrete direction. So kids around here, we have the protections on the plugs in the wall so the babies don't stick their finger or something copper in it. But me being 40 years old, if I go around and put my finger in the plug, that's my fault. I'm supposed to know better now because I'm in a more mature place. So over time, once you realize it, when you're trying to fulfill something spiritually with these physical activities and you recognize that it's not doing anything for me long term, then eventually that true revelation shows up and you see things differently and the truth will set you free. You start moving differently and then you make different. By the time I got to my wife, we weren't successful in all transparency, but by the time I got to my wife, I was like, I ain't having sex with nobody, because every time I do, it ends up costing me so many problems that it's not worth it. Then all of a sudden, it wasn't even a religious thing or I don't want to sin. It was, I don't want no more drama. I didn't have enough. Let's go ahead. It's not good for me to be by myself. Let's ring it up. You know, it's natural progression.
Such great points. It's, you know, one of the questions that we have, because that's a segue right to it, Brandon, is there any benefit to me in being a virgin or being celibate for some time before marriage? And if so, what? So you just kind of already spoke to that. Anybody else have a thought on that?
Man, that's one of the regrets I have in my whole life. Just one. And it's, I wish I knew only my wife. Mm-hmm. Only my wife. I mean, because my wife is a beautiful person in and out. And our marriage is, of course, not perfect, but it's just perfect for us. But there are times I told her, I wish that, you know, I only knew you. And I mean, I can only imagine what that would be like. And so I envy, you know, couples who had that. I mean, I'm not even gonna front about that. I wish I just had you and only you, and just what that would be like. So yeah, I just think when you don't have God in the beginning, sin is just, you missed the mark. Period. You just missed the mark of his standard. And then when you do come into his marvelous light or his renewing understanding, man, you know, you're just like, hey, man, I wish I could have redid that. You know, I wish I could have redid that while and out. But man, yeah, over the just to have a wife, yeah.
I want to say, like, right on the back of what he said, I want to say I feel the same way. Like I feel the exact same way, because I regret when I was out there playing the game, the women that I did hurt, you know, out there playing. And I wasn't one of those people that had the appetite, but I got caught up in the culture. And so I definitely feel the exact same way as you.
Elton, what are you
I said we all got caught up in the culture.
Yeah,
you know,
that's all we do in this show.
You know what, Al? I think there's so many things that when we're talking about culture versus marriage, the culture don't tell us that whoever you have sex with, whoever you have sex with, that's supernatural. That's a supernatural act. And whoever you have sex with, you gather that person, and that person becomes a part of you. Chemically, everything else. And those bad things, like Dig said, the drama. There's always gonna be drama. Always gonna be drama. I got kicked out of a barbershop one time because there was a guy there bragging about, oh, well, me and this girl got together and we said we weren't gonna have feelings, and she said we weren't gonna have feelings, we understood it, we were just gonna do our thing. And then she started getting feelings about it. And I told him that he was wrong. And he was like, no, everybody was like, no, I'm not wrong, he's not wrong. I was like, yes, you do, because you know that was a woman. The woman's emotional. You know she's gonna gravitate. I don't care what she says. That time when you want her to be there, when she wants you to be there and you can't, because you got to go there and do something else, that's when it's gonna flip. That's when it's gonna flip. And then she's gonna feel that, okay, well, you are attached to me because I gave you my whole being. So if you don't want to do this now, well, let's go see if we can tell whoever da. And so that whole barbershop got mad at me, but I mean, we just gotta face it and be like, you know, we know what it is. And he knew what it is. He just didn't want to own up to it.
Yeah.
There was you made a comment earlier about the hunger, and Brother Brittany said, "I wish you could have went back," and I'm right there with you as well. And for one, I was out there. I was out there, Doc, and I thank God for deliverance, and I couldn't get my virginity back, but God said you can get your spiritual virginity back. You can commit yourself before you get married, before you even see who's going to be your next one. So I made that commitment to my life, and then the hunger that I had for, you can say conquest or whatever, but the hunger turned to, blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Or what is righteousness? What does that look like? And everything that I was doing was for God and praying that God send me the one, and not the one that I choose or the one I think that got it all together, but send me the one. And in the process, God sent the right one, and I thank God for the right one.
All right, now.
Don't make me kiss my wife as soon as we get off of here down here. Don't make it.
Don't do it now. Don't wait. Don't do it right now.
Yeah.
Oh wow, so good, so good. So with all of the struggles, the different things, some of the stuff that we've been talking about, conquest, ego, the great advice, and all of that, what are some of the invisible struggles in the culture specific to Black men, and then what is some advice that you can give, if at all, for that specific invisible struggle when it comes to being a husband?
Go ahead.
Comment that. Anybody got
So, I actually have a therapeutic group called The Invisible Struggle, where we try to highlight the stuff that doesn't get highlighted. Dr. Carter G. Woodson in 1933 dropped a book called The Miseducation of the Negro. And he talks about how when we matriculate through academia that's been set up by the oppressor, we end up taking on the mindset where we end up becoming accomplices to maintaining the hierarchy that keeps Black people down, and always sending out messages that infiltrate and pollute our thinking. So when I've done couples counseling with white people versus Black people, there usually is a difference, because the message that Black people get is that men are slothful, men are hoes, men are promiscuous, men have a whole lot of negative, and women, they're angry, they're gold diggers, all of this stuff that goes into our subconscious. So not only is marriage super hard to maintain because there's two people coming together, you add on that extra layer of two Black people coming together that have this subconscious rumbling that says that he ain't no good and he's lazy anyway, so I don't need to respect him. She doesn't have my best interest at heart because she's just trying to get my money and she's gonna give me a hard time anyway. And then we end up moving on and trying to reach for white folks. Dr. Umar Johnson, who I don't rock with on a whole lot of things, he said something I thought was comical. He said it's the snow bunny crisis, because anything that's in close proximity to whiteness is pushed up as the thing that we need to aspire to. So that's why when people get successful, a lot of times they end up moving towards the white woman. So, but my point is, the culture teaches us negative things about ourselves that we have to deconstruct. And if we don't do that, it comes in our house, it comes in our bedroom, it comes when we're trying to rear our children, and when we're trying to build ourselves up. But if we don't know what the problem is, because it's invisible, we have no opportunity to try to solve it.
Yes, I love it. Actually, that question, that's where it comes from, sir. The question comes from you.
I appreciate it. Look, I feel validated.
What did you say? You said they called it the snow bunny. What?
He called it. He had a recent interview on Breakfast Club. He called it the snow bunny crisis, and the crisis where when what's his name? The first heavyweight champion that was Black. I think his name was Jack Johnson. He was always chasing white women. When Black dudes get a little bit of fame, usually that's one of the directions they go in because of that miseducation. So we are taught to devalue each other, and then we join in holy matrimony where it's challenging anyway. It's a problem. And if it's invisible, like if I have a wound on my finger and never treat it because I don't know it's there, eventually it gets infected. You can amputate my whole hand, or gangrene, and I don't make it out of here. Like, we have so many problems. We perish for a lack of knowledge. So many problems that we aren't aware of. So yeah, I'm gonna stop though. You know that topic gets me on fire. I'm all about black people.
I would say anybody watching the show definitely take a look at the resources we presented, because it is a thing that between black people that it is invisible, that we don't even know. We talk about conditioning, we talk about the culture, like it is an actual thing, and it's built in there. Even if you look at I think me and you talked about this. If you looked at how men, like enslaved men, were treated, like they were treated like livestock. You bring all the women in here. Let me get the biggest, the strongest enslaved man. Bring all these women in here and let me make some more, big stock, big like horses. Like let me get this man in here who's the biggest, strongest, and let me get these women in here, and we're gonna recreate some more men like him, so I can have some more strong enslaved people. That does have an effect on us today, whether we know it or not.
What was the question again?
Can you repeat the book real quick?
The Miseducation of the Negro.
Yeah.
1933. You can get it for like $10, $12 on Amazon. Dr. Carter G. Woodson. He's also the person who was the founder of Black History Month. He started as National Negro Week because he felt like we needed to know about our history so we wouldn't fall for the same traps over and over again.
That's right.
The new book is coming. The Snow Bunny Crisis.
Elton, the question was, what are some of the invisible struggles specific to black men, and what's some advice that you would give in relation to that as a husband?
One of the silent struggles, I think, is mental health, mental illness. I think from, we talk a lot about the last 7 to 10 years. Everybody said, the black woman is the most unprotected person on earth. But we don't celebrate black men unless they're a athlete, entertainer. We don't celebrate them at all. People can say, yeah, we do that. No, we don't. We just don't. And the mental anguish and illness from the second a black man wakes up, he's considering his household. He's considering how to talk to somebody, how to have the right tone of voice when he speaks to a white woman, how to have the right tone when he speaks to different kind of people, because we have to conditionalize ourselves and prepare other people to deal with this. When we approach certain people, we have to approach with a smile. We have to approach with this. We have to approach with that. And that day-to-day conditioning is something that goes on that we don't talk about, or that women don't know about. I stand up. Something caught me the other day, and it shook me to my core. My 2-year-old son, my wife took a picture of my 2-year-old son. He was standing up looking at the TV, he had his hands in his pocket. And she said, and she sent me the picture, and he gets that for me watching the news every night before I go to bed. And in the morning when I wake up, because I got to know what the weather's going to be for my family. I need to know what they need to wear. I need to know what's happening, current issues. I need to know how laws are going to be affected. All this stuff, how it's going to affect my family. And he picked that up. But one of those struggles is that we got to prepare ourselves day to day for those things that we think is just natural to us. But I mean, it's a struggle sometimes having to prepare yourself with stuff that other people don't have to prepare themselves for.
Yeah, you have to convince people all day long that you're not afraid.
Right.
Black men should be celebrated every day. They have so much on their shoulders. They are trying to balance home, work, and children. Being a black man is the struggle. Do you guys feel that being a black man is the struggle?
I believe this is definitely one of the struggles. But I want to no shade, Mr. Kirk whatsoever. But I see a comment that says lack of fathers in the home. So culture again, misinformation. The truth is, in actuality, black fathers are one of the most prominent and stay-at-home demographics in America. But the myth continues to go out because the way oppression works is it teaches the person that, or the group that is oppressed, it's their fault that they're oppressed, and it's their job to pull themselves out of their oppression. It's like throwing somebody in a 20-foot hole and telling them, it's your fault you fell in here and you need to get yourself out of it. But we need to get to a lot of the truth so we can reaffirm ourselves. That's some of the attack when it talks about the struggle is being a black man. That's some of the attack too. The stereotypes that continuously come out that define us and help shape our own thoughts about ourselves. That's a consistent thing a lot of time in and out of the home. So, you know, gaining more education, and I'm not talking about just academia, but understanding, and all that get understanding about what's really happening and how we're being attacked.
They did a follow-up.
Say again?
They did a follow-up to their study that I think that this premise came from their lack of fathers in the home. The study, the way that they gathered the data was marriage. They used that as the indicator of whether a black father was in the home or not, and it was based on marriage. While black people are not married as much as other cultures, other races, whatever. I don't want to see races because it's all one race. But we're not married like as other groups. The black fathers were found, like when they broke it down to how much time you spend with that child on a daily basis, you help them with homework, all these things. They found that more black fathers were present than any other group, Hispanic, any other group. And it was all about how they captured that data. That's where that idea comes from.
And the systems, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the system's also set up to try to bind the strong man, to try to get the man out of the house. So there's so many things that are perpetuated systemically that push black people down socioeconomically. So if you don't have enough money to survive, then you usually end up some way supported by the government, which I'm not bashing anybody for that. But one of the things that come along with it is if you're not married, Al, you just talked about, then you can't have that man in the home with you. And then we lose that nucleus that we were talking about before. Then it becomes a perpetual, generational, cyclical curse where we have this problematic piece where we are deconstructed. But it's not us doing it. It's the culture creating those conundrums, so we end up in those disjointed positions.
Yeah. So as we wrap up, I would like to. Was somebody gonna say something?
Yeah, I wanted to answer your question.
Okay.
And tell, come back with your question one more time so I can make sure I answer it correctly.
Okay. Yeah. What are some of the invisible struggles specific to black men as a husband?
Yes. So that's a subject in itself. But one thing, two things. Vulnerability is one, and on things on our time scale, things that happen. So I'm reminded of Genesis 16, the story of Abram and Sarah. And when things didn't happen on their watch, they reached to this bad black sister from Egypt named Hagar, right, to fulfill this thing that didn't happen, which was producing a son, producing a child. And every black man would love to have a son, right, and to love to have a child. And so that's one of the big things that every man would want. But I'd have a daughter. And my daughter is everything. So I'm not worried about having a son because God blesses us with other children we can pour into, people that we can adopt, things like that. But having a child, period, to pass it to the next generation. And one of the big misconceptions is you have to have a son in order to take the namesake, to carry on the legacy, right? But a daughter can very well do that. So just thinking about that and making sure that things happen on God's time scale and not ours is very important.
But look, they say that when I used to work in the nursing facility, the clients would tell me that the daughter's the one that's going to take care of you. So I'm just going to leave you there. A couple doors.
Somebody, James says a man and a father are not always equal. Some men never become. great fathers. So I do want to wrap us up, and I want to wrap us up on a like a higher note. Not that that was a low note or anything, but I really want to get back to this thing called husband. And we have been talking about it the whole time, but in relation to your spouses, if we could close out with some advice or tip or something that you can share with other husbands or men who are thinking it through, pondering it, kind of on the fence, whatever, or husbands who need some innovative ideas, some encouragement of something that you do simple Monday, Tuesday. It doesn't have to be a Saturday, Friday night, date night, but something that you do on a daily basis or regular support to your spouse.
I'll kick
So
it
let's
off.
start with Brittany.
You know, all right, I'll kick it off. You know, I think that every single day, as a husband, as somebody who's thinking about becoming a husband, one of the most precious things you're going to do to your spouse, for your spouse, or incoming spouse, is let them be them. I mean, you gotta let them be them, man. Let them be authentic. You know, one of the things I did that I'm kind of proud of myself. I'm just proud of myself.
Okay.
I ain't boasting, but here's what I did though. I got rid of all of my expectations and let her be her. My wife only has 3 expectations, and it's this. I want you to be a daughter to God. I want you to be a godly wife, and I want you to be a godly mother. Those are the only 3 things I want you to be. Everything else is off the table. I don't care if I come home and you cook hot pot for dinner. I'm gonna eat the pot. I don't care whatever it is, whatever your days it is. I have no other expectations but those, because God's gonna help you with all 3 of those. Outside that, let your wife be herself. Be herself. You're gonna experience a fruitful marriage if that happens alone. Take your expectations away. Don't be that brother, because I come up in dysfunction anyway. Like, my parents got divorced, so what I saw was dysfunction. So, how healthy would my expectations be anyway? And that's the story for the majority of us. So let your spouse be your spouse. I promise you, you have a fruitful marriage.
I love it. Coming home to Pop-Tarts and a juice box.
I eat it, bro. I eat it.
I love it. Yeah, right.
What about the rest? What about let's go to Elton.
I think if I was encouraging a young brother to get married, and he's thinking about marrying a young lady, I would tell him to look at the small things. Notice the small things. Those are things that's gonna last. Those are things that's gonna show up no matter what. And those things gonna keep you married. I remember when I knew the point I knew I was gonna marry my wife was when I went out to a date, and then we went to the movies. And the lady gave us the price of the ticket, and I reached in to get my money, and then she said, "I got it." And that act right there showed me that she wasn't selfish, and that she was gonna be the one, dog. She was gonna be the one, because no matter what, when she knew I had it, she still showed in kind that, hey, I care too. Let me show you what I can do too, and that's continue to be the marathon that we're running in this marriage race, and just being considerate, and some of the things that you think you're gonna argue about, you want to argue about, don't argue about, because sometimes it ain't worth it. When we first got married, sometimes when she cooked and she leave all the cabinets open, and it's like ghosts live with us, right? And so, but then I was like, why should I just close the cabinet? But then I had to step back and say that Holy Spirit thing. I had to step back and say, well, look, she's cooking your meal. That's why the cabinet's open. You see what I'm saying? So why am I talking at something that don't make a hill of beans, and she's replenishing keeping me alive? You see what I'm saying? So just look at those small things, and I make sure I kiss her every day when I leave this house. And that's it, man. Stay girlfriend and boyfriend. Don't get caught up in culture and what they say you need to do.
That's
So
good.
that's it.
What about Dr. Fred, Reverend Fred?
Oh man, I'm still trying to get my wife to get some things, so I just laughing about that right there. You know, they say behind every great man is a great woman, and I like to debunk that because the Bible talks about she is more precious than rubies. So if she's more precious than that, why she's behind you? She needs to be beside you, needs to be in front of you. So I'm like my brother Brittany, why not flourish and push her up so that she can enhance her gifts, encourage her gifts. So that's what I try to do to the best of my ability. Every gift that my wife has, I try to encourage that and fan it to the flame and encourage it. And one thing that we do every single day is I pray. I would encourage every man to have prayer with her, prayer with your wife to be, prayer with your wife. Encourage to pray. And then sometimes you step back and let her pray and listen what God says, right? Because at some point she ought to be able to be able to pray. Some of that anointing that's on you ought to rub off on her, and vice versa. Because you don't have all the anointing by yourself. You better believe she got some anointing too. Come on now, come on now. Yeah, hey now. Make you say hallelujah, hallelujah.
All right, be big.
All right. Quick disclaimer with the snow bunny piece. If I'm gonna get shot up for my comments, I'm gonna get shot up for accuracy. I don't have any problem with folks, choosing who they choose. Just making a point. Anyway, so and there are some people who aren't built to or looking to get married. That's a whole other category. But for the fellas that are aspiring, like it was said earlier, I would suggest wait till you're ready. When I was looking, or when I encountered my wife, and then she was revealed to me to be that person, I was literally looking for a wife. I remember she said, my girls and I, we decided we ain't having sex till we married. I was like, cool, that makes it easier. So I was in a position where that was a good thing, whereas another time before that might have been problematic. So wait till you're in a position where you are ready, or at least ready to make the decision to take on the responsibility of a husband. When it comes to in marriage, my advice, again, it may sound kind of strange, but I'll do it like this. Bill Winston, I believe he's out of Chicago, a pastor out of Chicago. He talks about, or I heard him talk about one time he went to a marriage conference, and a book was on sale about how to pray your wife into being a virtuous woman. He was like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna get this book, I'm gonna pray for her, I'm gonna change her, I'm gonna make her a virtuous woman where she blesses this house, et cetera, et cetera. And then he said the more he went through the book and was saying the prayers, he started to recognize he was the one that was changing. He was the one that was shifting. And when I analyze my world, when I am positively reactive to my wife, it's not when she's giving me the business and getting me told about all the things that I need to do better. It's when she's showing me love and my reaction. She's creating an environment where I grow. Same thing for her. I heard Jake say a rose can't grow in mud. In other words, we got to be careful about the foundation and environment that we're in. When I work on me, then I create an environment that is conducive for growth. And I give her the opportunity to, like it was said earlier, to be herself and to be more of herself, which was built for me in this union anyway. So instead of putting the onus and the gaze and stare on our partners, on the women that we have come into this union with, look in the mirror, like Michael Jackson said. Look in the mirror and start with yourself, and then watch how everything ends up changing.
All right.
Al, to wrap us up and close
I think I got two that I want to leave with. Gonna be quick though. First one is God's math. God's math is two become that one. God's math. A lot of times in the culture, I think we have this idea that two halves become one. Be a whole person before you get married. Be a whole person. Explore yourself. Know who you are. Date yourself. Be uncomfortable. Like all these things. Be a whole person before you get married. The other one is keep hunting. Don't stop hunting. I know we talked about this, but don't stop hunting. But the trick is you hunt your wife. She is changing every day. She's gonna be a different person every day. When you put that ring on her when y'all were dating, she's still gonna continue to change. You still need to continue to hunt. Like you still need to figure her out every day, figure out who she is, what she wants, dreams, visions, what she cares about, all those things. Just keep hunting. That's gonna be a t-shirt.
Keep hunting. I love it. Well, incredible conversation, kings and queens. Thank y'all for this. Thank you, Justin, for that comment. Dr. Threat, you have an amazing disposition. Tiffany Mosley said, yes, Al, Tiffany Mosley. And gentlemen, thank you for keeping it real. Coranda Royster Herring. I want to thank you all for joining us, gentlemen, for the show. I want to thank Al for his continued partnership and collaboration and the great ideas. I love a team that comes with ideas. I love collaboration. This has been a great show. Thank you to our sponsor, Elton Benjamin, one of our sponsors, who actually is on the platform. But thank you, Elton Benjamin. He did the branding for this. He did the flyer, as well as what you see right here, all of the branding, and he does it for all of Coffee and Collaborations Media. So we appreciate it.
GOAT. That's Elton's new name, the graphic GOAT.
Yes, yes, yes. So we want to thank him, Industry Image. If you need logos, graphic design, website, all of that stuff, videography, it's a whole team that you can work with. So reach out. Al, did you want to add anything? I'm good. I want to thank everybody for coming. Follow Coffee and Collaborations. Make sure to replay the show and share. And I'm going to turn it over to Al to close us out.
Yeah, I appreciate all of you gentlemen coming on here, really being raw. When I told them, when I introduced the show to them, I said it was going to be barbershop talk. Like, and I'm appreciative of how you embrace that, because I feel like this is what we need. Like, we have husbands out here that we're going through some similar things, and I feel like we were able to address a lot of that, and I appreciate it. Like, we want to help. We want to have healthy, successful marriages and healthy, just well-balanced husbands and men and all these things. So I appreciate all you guys for just taking your time and doing that. Please make sure to drop your handles, and we'll do that too before we leave. But everybody that tuned in, like, this is not it. This is not it. We're gonna do a part 2. So don't look. We gotta get the wives in here. We gotta get that wives off. So don't look. Stay tuned. You thought this was wrong. Come on, wait for part 2.
Remember that thing you was talking about? Remember the ego thing you was talking about? Oh, get ready for that.
Your wife said the graphic gold. She loved it.
Put on some cars.
Yeah, so
all right, so I want you guys to go around and let people know how they can get in touch with you. Real quick, Mr. B. Diggs, the R&B superstar.
I'll drop your handle.
Gotcha. So right now, no website or anything like that, but I do have a group called Lion Tamers, where we look at the royalty and the power that comes with it, and we tame it and point it in the direction that we want to go in, to support Black men and their holistic development. If you want to reach me, the Center of Transformation, PLLC at Gmail. The Center of Transformation, PLLC. If you want to contact me for anything, references for therapy or activities like this. I do trainings around diversity, equity, inclusion, social justice, and specialize in spiritual holistic development. That's all I got. Appreciate it.
All right, mouthful. All right, Mr. Brentley, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'll go next. Just catch me at BrentleyWright.com. That's BrentleyWright, BrentleyWright.com. Everything you need to know about me is there. You can get in contact with me there. I guess when everybody else finishes, man, I'll pray us out.
Sounds good.
Okay. Listen, the graphics go.
Elton Benjamin, graphics, branding, and marketing, videographer. We have a lot of the big brands around here. One we're working with now is the African American Cultural Festival, so we got to see that advertisement with Brady Bush. We're doing that right now. And there's a whole lot of other things that we do for a lot of the key leaders here. So if any of you guys need any work, logos, websites, I know you need a website. I heard you say you need a website. anything you guys need, and you just need to look that next level, I'm the guy. So just give me everything else in Benjamin. And if you need to get in touch with me, you can reach out to Kim too. Thank you.
Doctor, let us know.
You can check me out at Cities of Refuge Church and also your Restored Ministries that you are. restoredministries.org. And my email, I gave you email, byhisgrace.thankful@gmail.com, because it's all about His grace. That's the only way I make it. Byhisgrace.thankful.
I like the dot thankful.
You said you are, is that the letter U, the letter R, and then restored?
Yep,
All right.
Restored Ministries. Both of those focus on all those impacted by incarceration.
All right. Okay, I got them all.
So definitely, everybody watching, please reach out to all of these gentlemen. You can see they out here doing the work. Like we didn't just choose them because they got nice voices or something. Like they out here doing the work. So make sure that you reach out to everybody. And you want to take us home, Brentley?
So I wanted to stop that. I like that was really, really, really amazing. I don't know how you felt about it, but each one of those husbands, those men, please make sure that you reach out to them. They are doing some amazing work. Like I said before, they're doing some amazing work, and this is not it. So this is just kind of like another like pre-game or warm up for tomorrow. So make sure that you come back tomorrow. Join us at 8:00 p.m. on Coffee and Collaborations on Facebook or YouTube. Same place, same time you join me today, and we're gonna have the wives. Like I am confident that they're gonna bring it hard. Like we're gonna get right. Like we had this barbershop talk today. We're gonna have that salon talk tomorrow. And if you go ahead and share right now, make sure that you tell your friends, make sure you tell anybody who's thinking about getting married, because it is important that you go into a marriage like they said before. Make sure that you're trained, make sure that you're educated. It is more than just kind of putting on that ring and having that wedding. You want to make sure that you go into it and be successful at it. This is something that is like truly near and dear to my heart, because I feel like marriage is the foundation of our society, of our culture. So make sure to go ahead and share. And I just appreciate all of you coming to kind of join us. And like I said, I'm really happy about how this turned out. Thankful for Kimberly Winborn. Thankful for everybody for being a part of it. And let's get ready tomorrow. Let's get ready for tomorrow. Join us at 8 p.m. tomorrow, and let's talk to the wives. And if you got questions, send us those questions too. But let's do it. Be on time. All right. I will see you tomorrow, and thank you all for joining me for Coffee and Collaborations.